And we'll get the betting. For this filly's handicap, Sapa Inca, 1 mile for the trip here, is 11-8. Padabhavati is 9-2. Little India is 5-1 from 6-1. Navadir at 15-2. Cafe Espresso at 9-1. Wanasar at 14s out from 11s. Riverina at 16s from 20s and 50s into 40s. That's Mrs. Meader. So Sapa Inca, absolutely stunning pedigree. Stepping up in trip now. 215 days off the track, trained by Mark Johnson. He's only run out on the evening here, Chris. But a full sister, no less, to Johannes Vermeer, who was a class act in Europe, and when sent down to Australia, was third in a Caulfield Cup and second in a Melbourne Cup as well. So the step up in trip shouldn't be a problem for a Sapa Inca.
Not a problem, and in all likelihood, as long as she settles well enough, because she could be a bit keen at times last year, fairly enthusiastic, then it should be a pointer towards massive improvement for her. I actually think that for all that, obviously the Johannes Vermeer point is a good one, and it emphasised that pedigree. The more interesting pedigree point is the full sister as well, Elizabeth Browning, who ended her 2-year-old campaign having had quite a bit of racing over shorter distances with an official rating of 82, but by the end of her 3-year-old campaign was rated 106 and a group winner. And maybe that's more obviously Johan Vermeer was even very good at 2. He ended up running a Racing Post Trophy, didn't he, as it was still there.
He won a Group 1 at 3, at 2. Well, he certainly ran in 1 in France, I think.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Where did he finish in the Racing Post Trophy?
I'll tell you what, that's challenging me. I have no idea. I have no idea whatsoever. Elizabeth Browning was also Aidan O'Brien, though.
Yes, yeah, they were both Aidan O'Brien, but as I said, just the fact that she ran quite a bit at 2 wasn't anything special, and then by the end of her 3-year-old campaign, he was second to Marcel. He won at Saint-Cloud, the Criterium International. Did Johan Vermeer, so he was a Group 1 winner at 2. And he did run in a Racing Post Trophy, but he finished second in it. So I think Sapa Inca is a potential big improver. She was handicapped fairly quickly, made her debut early August. By early September at York she'd wrapped up for the season and got her mark, and I thought she shaped really well in the last of those starts. She was quite enthusiastic out in front. She set a good tempo. The horses that came through and beat her all came from a good way back, right out the back pretty much, and I think you could probably mark her up a little bit. So long as she settles well enough, and I think a bit more experience hopefully she can do. They got earplugs in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then if she just relaxes well enough up in trip, then I think she's potentially a big improver under Joe Fanning.
She looks like she's ready to go, Fran.
Yeah, she's definitely, the earplugs in, and as Chris said, she did show a tendency to not over race, but race enthusiastically last in her runs, and she's going to have to settle over this longer trip, which she's bred to improve at it, but she's got to allow herself to get the trip, and relax into it.
Yeah, we won't know the answer, but it'd be interesting to know if she had the earplugs in last year when she was showing that enthusiasm.
That's true, and if we can keep an eye on Joe at the start, whether he takes them out at the start, or are they only in for the preliminaries or in for the actual race.
There's a few, they're stepping up in trip. She's bred to do it, 11-10. Padmavati, who's a 9-2 shot, she's hooded for the 2019 return, hooded for the first time. She was 0 from 4 at 2. She's stepping up in trip to 1.5 miles. She's out of a winner for Godolphin, and I think her dam was a relative of Parlour Gaines, who won a Channel Hurdle and of course was placed at the Cheltenham Festival.
Yeah, and she's by new approach, so you would think that she's going to improve for time and distance. I think she needs to improve to a greater degree than Sapa Inca, but she's got a handicap mark knocking on a stone lower, so she's shown less, and she wouldn't need to be anything special to be winning off a mark of 62, and I think the expectation is that at some point she will prove better than that mark. She's got the hood on for the first time, and for all that she hasn't set the world alight, I think you would expect that as a 3-year-old, given that pedigree, she's going to improve for time and distance, which is exactly what she gets this afternoon. She's up in distance for her first start as a 3-year-old. I think Sapa Inca has got more potential, and she will still be the higher rated 2 by the end of it, but she's definitely an interesting enough runner.
Fran, if you were to take the ride on Sapa Inca, who hasn't been seen since last year, she's extremely well bred, and if she were to be keen out of the gates, obviously she hasn't tried the trip, but the expectation based on the pedigree is that she should have it within her compass. How do you look to play things?
Well, the good thing for Joe Fanning here is he's got Cafe Espresso of Archie Watson's, who's confirmed front runner. Archie's are all, as we've seen in the previous race, are all ridden prominently, and this one's done that in the past. So Joe Fanning with that draw might just be able to secure a position with a bit of cover, box seat behind the leaders, second, third. And if she doesn't settle from there, she won't settle anywhere, I think, so that should allow her to settle. And the one thing for Joe, I suppose, is that if he's intent on taking a lead, that she doesn't jump too well with him, and then Holly Doyle goes by him and sets him alight into the first bend, and once he can secure that cover, if that's his intention, things should pan out, to allow him every chance to settle and get home.
Not necessarily the mile and a half start, but some of the middle distance races, given the proximity of the stalls to where you would be turning on the bend, can they actually be almost a bit more difficult than some of the shorter races?
Yeah, definitely. The style of all-weather racing has changed, particularly in the 3 years since I moved to England. The pace has gone out of the race. Even in just 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I think when I came over first, I found things were happening that there's more of an even gallop, and but nowadays it just seems to be. Particularly in mile and a quarter, mile and a half races, with these starts, this one's not too bad. You've got nearly 2 furlongs to the bend, but some of these starts with a furlong a bit, it's a real dash down to the bend to secure your position. You need to be perceived notion is you need to be in the first 4 or 5. You get your position, then you jam on the brakes, and if you're not in that position off a slow pace, you're snookered, and today it won't be a problem for Joe with a smaller field and a confirmed front runner, but it has changed the style of racing on the all-weather. I think it's gone very false, and you don't really have to stay to win, I think, at times.
Yeah, I think a lot of horses outstay what they do on the turf when they go on the all-weather, and I think a lot of the reason for that, as Fran said there, is that they go hard. You've got to have early pace to hold your position, and then the bends effectively slow you down, and everyone knows that if you can get a horse to relax and then get a tactical advantage. And the problem is, particularly in the bigger fields, because in a lot of instances Kempton's a bit different, Newcastle's different, I guess, but because you've got a short straight, the rest doesn't develop, and if you're held up, you either have to quicken going wide into a quickening pace, which is suicidal really. You're not going to manage to win unless you've got bundles in hand, or you wait and they get away from you. So
yes, totally. You're snookered either way, really. If you end up any of these tracks, with the exception of Linkfield on the home turn, if you end up more than 3 wide, if you are 3 wide, I think you're done. If you make a ground that way, especially off a quickening pace, trying to get around horse through quickening, it puts you at a major disadvantage. And we'd often say, oh look, there's a horse, he's unlucky, he flew home from nowhere. But if you went back to the start, they're because they didn't hit the gates and get into position in the first 100 yards, they're actually on the back foot straight away.
So when based here permanently, for all that you've ridden plenty in the UK over the years anyway, was it a learning curve to pick up all of the nuances of the different all-weather tracks?
Yeah, definitely. It's like anything. The more you get to know tracks, the more you get more effective on them, I suppose. And it's the little things where you can nick a length and things like that. That do count in the end. On the best horse you can get away with it. But I found last year was maybe not nicking races, but I was getting horse into place positions that by just getting to know how to ride a track better.
Okay, they're just about all in, so here's John.
Thank you, Nick. Ready to go then. And they're off and racing. It looked a fairly even jump from the gates. A couple just taken behind. The free-going Padmavati is now held up last of all. You'd think she'd benefit from a strong gallop as they head down towards the first bend. And it's Wasana who is out in front in the early stages. Wanasa leading up from Riverina in second, and Saparinka, the warm favourite, in third place. The red and yellow starred colours. Fourth place then to the outside is Cafe Espresso, followed then by Little India, and then another length and a bit to Mrs. Meader, who's on the inside of Navadir, and Padmavati held up last of all under Andrea Azzeni as they swing round toward the far side of the racetrack. And Wanasa and Trevor Whelan lead now by a couple of lengths. Riverina noses into second place once again, just ahead of Sapa Inca in third. Then Cafe Espresso right alongside Little India. They're 4 and 5, with Mrs. Meader next. A neck further away is Navadir, and Navadir now just eases into sixth place. Mrs. Meader 7th, and 2 lengths away is Padmavati still last of all. The 32 red on the App Store fillies handicap, and they're well down the back straight. Still taken along by Wanasa. Wanasa from Riverina and Sapa Inca. Sapa Inca tracked in turn by both Cafe Espresso and Little India. Little India has got Navadir towards her outside. Then another small break to Mrs. Meader. And still the back marker is Padmavati after being steadied at the start. And now they race round with half a mile left to go here in race 6 tonight. And Wanasa still with the advantage. Riverina second, third place Sapa Inca. There's been no change to this racing order at all yet, with Cafe Espresso still in 4th place just ahead of Little India as they head round into the home straight. Navadir to the outside, Padmavati and Mrs. Meader at the back. Sapa Inca just had to take back there as it got a little bit congested approaching the cutaway, and now pushing the button is Cafe Espresso on the outside of Wanasa. Sapa Inca just in behind them, just a little bit slow to pick up at the moment. Still in third with a chance though. Mrs. Meader and Little India, they come next. Cafe Espresso, Wanasa's giving it everything, still on the rail. Sapa Inca coming home strongly. Cafe Espresso, Sapa Inca and Wanasa on the far side. Not much separated those 3 fillies as they flash past as one.
There wasn't much in it, but it looks like in successive races it is Archie Watson, probability in our previous race, and now Cafe Espresso in the first time blinkers, daughter of Sir Percy under Holly Doyle, who won just 10 days ago, and it has been called, of course, with a photograph for the second, because Cafe Espresso the winner, and she had a nice smooth run into things, Chris.
Yeah, just managed to secure first run on the eventual runner-up. I think Sapa Inca finished in second spot, but I think the key point of the race in many ways was early on in the straight, where I think Holly Doyle came from behind where Sapa Inca and Joe Fanning were, but by making that move locked in Sapa Inca, and really Sapa Inca just couldn't fully open up and get out, and in a bit of a tactical race just got a bit unfortunate really. I felt there Sapa Inca, and Holly Doyle has just picked up at the right time and meant that Joe Fanning couldn't get out.
Yeah, Joe's in a pocket. He got his horse settled, and as I'm sure he wanted to do, but unfortunately Trevor Whelan has controlled things up in front and hasn't gone that quick, and things have got stacked up, and Luke Morris here is holding his line to deny Joe a clear run at a time, which he's entitled to do, but as that is happening, Holly's managed to quicken down the outside, get her horse running, and it's turned into a little bit of a dash to the line, and Sapa Inca's just, after getting held up, has got outpaced.
So she's had to check twice, hasn't she?
Yeah.
Sapa Inca.
Yeah.
She's definitely just, at that point, it'd be interesting to see what the head-on was like, how short it got, but it looks as though she's a bit of a galloper, and we were saying about the tactical nature of some of these all-weather races, and just at this point, as she's short of room, and Joe Fanning's probably wanting to wind her up, but he can't because there's not really any proper room to wind her up into. I know there's a gap there, but it's fairly tight, isn't it? And it shortens up, and then once he brings her to the outside, but she was just a bit outpaced when he actually wanted to send her on, I think.
Yeah, lack the sharpness is possibly the winner as well, and not being allowed to get into her rhythm sooner, definitely counted against her. I'd say the one good thing to come out of the race is that she did relax and do things properly, but on another day she's probably the best filly in the race.
Well, the first, second, third were Cafe Espresso, then Sapa Inca, Wanasa. Credit the winner who, £6 penalty for breaking that maiden at Lingfield and a seller from the front over 10 furlongs. Archie Watson won this race last year, he's won it this year. Good stuff from Holly Doyle. Also, Wanasa, who made the running and then went again and was very much staying there, she's related to winners by Cape Cross out of a Singspiel mare as well. She's enjoyed the step up in trip. Obviously, not all races over a mile and a half are going to be run like that. But in terms of the overall profile, Chris, of Sapa Inca, having seen her all the way out, seen her in the race and knowing her, given that it was her first run back, what would be your take going forward with
I think they'll be disappointed that she's been beaten because it was a winnable race, but I think that race really hasn't helped her. Cafe Espresso, well done to her connections for getting another win on the board with her, and an outsider plating company. They'll be delighted with that, but I think that the way that a turf race will develop will suit Sapa Inca much, much better, and she'll improve on the grass.
Cafe Espresso, quick double, Archie Watson.
Hey, Harry.
Hello, mate.
Tell me how to get to the racecourse.
I'm useless with directions. Your best bet is to find a queue of horse boxes and follow them. But if you want a sure winner, I do know a nice horse. It's absolutely been burning up the gallops.
Harry?
I've only got to burn Sandra's crumpets.
Oh, don't.
Sandra, you do like yours well done, don't you, Sand?
Listen to Harry and make your best bet with Bet Victor.
Yeah, 100 to 1.
Confirming the first three home from Kempton Park in the 7:15. Still a couple of races to come from Kempton. Cafe Espresso 8 to 1 for Holly Doyle and Archie Watson beats Sapa Inca 5 to 4 favourite Wanasar 14 to 1 in third. Ballinrobe, pack scene there ahead of their 7:30, which is the penultimate race. The Racing TV Irish National Hunt flat race, 2 miles 1.5 furlongs, 1, 9, 17, 18 and 19. They come out. Of course, the 3 reserves incorporated in that. Biovideria is 15 to 8. The Gabby Cabby is 100 to 30. Watch guard.